So I got the MegNeg on. 2019 Transition Patrol, Superdeluxe. Had the DPX2 on it. Got it pretty much swinging. Got the DPX2 as much performance as I can get out of it. I think could experiment more, but there's really not much room to move anymore. So anyway, we got the MegNeg on now. To give you a brief overview of how this shot was. So when I got this, had the standard Aircan. Now, I've ridden a lot of different bikes with Superdeluxes and a few different bikes with the DPX2s, and it seems the Superdeluxe always outperforms the DPX2. That's why I bought this Superdeluxe. I thought it was going to be killer on this bike. Initial impressions, and after testing it for a week or two, small bump sensitivity, amazing, just night and day, really, really good. Mid-stroke support, excellent. Bottom out support, almost non-existent. Literally almost non-existent. Had to run a heap of compression to avoid going down that deep into the travel, to avoid those bottom outs, but still kind of using a lot of the travel on bigger hits, G outs and whatnot. So, you know, places where you would dial in your low speed compression to find it, but I don't want to lean on the oil completely. I don't want to lean on the compression damping completely to control that movement. I want to not lean on the spring too much, but I want the spring to do the majority of the work and the compression to complement it, not the other way around. At the moment, the compression, or with the standard can, the compression was doing most of the work of stopping it going through that travel, which puts a big load on your suspension. So a little bit more air, a little bit less oil would be great. Enter the MegNeg. So this is basically like putting a luft cap. The luft cap that you get for your fork dramatically increases the negative side of your air spring in most cases. So it's basically a luft cap for your rear shock. I know Vorsprung does do the corset for certain shocks, but not for this yet, as far as I know. So perfect. Luft cap, MegNeg, come to the party. Should give me heaps more bottom out support and give the spring a much better shape. I'm looking for a certain shape in the spring at the moment. With the standard can, it goes, it starts here, it goes up, and then it drops off. Now it's going up, and it's just becoming a much better spring already. So loaded full of tokens. I had the Nardog in, plus 2 standard tokens in the standard can, with not enough bottom out support like I just described. Putting the MegNeg on, I've had to go with that configuration of spaces, 145 psi, up from 110 with the standard can for the same amount of sag. And at 145, it was too choppy in the back. It was not compliant, and it was when you're getting into rough stuff and you're kind of braking and trying to change your angle or controlling yourself through rough stuff, trying to keep that back end planted, it's just moving constantly. It's not grabbing onto it. It's not grabbing the ground. It's not gripping the ground. So similar characteristic as the DPX2 with 2 larger spacer in it. So first move was to take a spacer out. So I've taken 1 spacer out, went back up, tested, started to gain a bit more compliance without really touching anything else, just the spacer out, and then adjust the pressure to suit the same sag again. So I'm at about 32% sag, something like that. Still a bit choppy. Still, once you get up to speed, like real high speed, it's hard to hold a line. It doesn't hold its line that well. It kind of darts off and it pushes the front because of that back. So you're getting into real rough stuff and you just can't keep the bike composed. It'll just dart off track or off line quite easily. It's like it needs to be manhandled. So took another spacer out, so we're just down to just the Nardog in there, so equivalent of 2.5 spacers in there. Up to 155, I think I did 160 psi. So sag was still a little bit deep at 100. It was probably 35% sag at 55 psi with that configuration, and that's too deep a sag for me. It is great geometry wise. The bike does handle really well in that sag point, that deep in the sag, but the way the suspension works overall in big compressions and staying on top of things, it's just not quite suitable for me. I'd like the 32% to 31, 32. Right on 30%, it stands up a little bit too high, and it's not the best in the steeps. But once you get into that 31, 32% sag, it's the best of both worlds. It's wicked in the steeps, and it still stays on top of things, given that you've got your configuration in your shock right. So at the 2.5, it was almost perfect. I went 241 down death track, so quite fast. I wasn't really going hammer and tong, but I was trying to put it down and see how much I could get out of it. Trying to expose weakness in the shock, trying to expose weaknesses in my setup. So I found that setup with the 32% sag, which was 160 psi, rebound relatively fast, 2 clicks from full fast. Low speed compression, I was only at 3 or 4 clicks. I wanted more low speed compression, and I wanted more. I found that I slowed the rebound down, and it gave me a little bit of what I wanted and a little bit of what I didn't want. So the shock not coming back as fast isn't what I want, but it also calmed the back end down a little bit, which is a sign that that spring configuration is still just a little bit too stout. So it didn't go through all my travel on the bottom step downs either. So I still had a little bit, probably a good solid few mil left before the bottom of the travel, and I'd expect to pretty much use it all there. So now I'm going to open this can up, go just the 2 standard spaces, so take the Nardog out, so we're going half a space or less. Adjust the PSI to that. So basically what I want to do is I want to run more PSI to get it up in this sag, but if I run more just to get it slightly higher in the sag, but if I run more PSI with this configuration, it's going to get choppier. So I'll take a spacer out, up the PSI, I'm going to get the higher sag without the higher chop. So that's the next port of call. That Nardog's coming out, the 2's going in, and I really want to lean, like I said before, I want to lean a little bit more on compression to keep it upright keep it up in the travel, and not go whenever I'm landing on things or going through kind of, if you've ridden death track, you know there's a lot of this. So I want that compression to be a little bit increased, so that instead of the back end doing this, it's always going to be kind of controlled a little bit more. That damping's going to stop it from blowing through without really making it harsh. If I add damping now with this configuration, it gets a little bit harsh. So spring configuration, a little bit more damping, and I want that rebound as fast as possible as well, which a softer spring is going to allow too. So the faster rebound makes the bike feel more quiet, more responsive, and more supple, being that you got your configuration right. So that's where we're at the moment. About to hit the trails again, straight back up to death track, and spend another half a day smashing runs on it. And I reckon by the end of today I'll have it absolutely singing. So MegNeg, killer, Whippet's Workshop, thanks for getting it in, and this thing's singing.